I'm here with Neil Fettling, an artist and educator, and Neil has done a number of projects that are linked to the art in his former community of Mildura, and also to the projects in other parts of Australia, where he has installations and paintings that sometimes complement some of these images. And I'll start with the question, Neil, that you're an artist who has lived for a long time in a rural community, and I know of a project that you did that's reflective of your period of time in the Mallee in Victoria in Australia, and it seems that a lot of your work reflects the rural character or the rural nature of your time in these sort of areas. Can you say something about that?
Yeah, I moved into, I started working in the Mallee some 30 years ago now, and it struck me as being an extraordinarily undervalued or I suppose misunderstood region. I suppose it came out of that 19th century European utopian notion of trying to make something out of nothing, to tame the great kind of semi-arid, to grow crops where there's marginal climate, very rarely rains, and there's dust storms, and there's plagues of rabbits and mice, the whole boom-bust cycle. And my work responds to the notion of European settlement in this region, and the attempts at sustainability. The tragic notion of loss and displacement. The fact that some of these settlers came in as ex-World War I returned soldiers and were given an unsustainable plot of land to eke out a living, and the trauma from the trenches and the blasted landscape on in the trenches of Flanders were in some ways replicated by the clearing of the Mallee forests, in this kind of ambition that was based on kind of foolhardiness in a way. And so my art looks at what's left. Sometimes these appear in civic title offices, their legacy of trying to sustain some livelihood in the Mallee. But largely, I collect the things that have been left behind. Often these settlers and their families are long gone, given up, out of exasperation of not being able to eke a livelihood.
What are these things that you find?
I find the remnants of food containers, the fact that the tin can was used for exploration, was used in the trenches in the First World War. The fact that from 1810, when the tin can was created, it becomes a very flexible way to transport food, and the fact that these primary producers in the harsh desert of inland Australia were sustaining themselves by eating Scandinavian kippers was a beautiful irony that always stayed with me. So to pick up these kipper cans, or these beer cans, or these pickled beans, and they're all been genericized by the climate into a kind of a rusty patina that is of the earth. So I reinstall these objects into large commemorative wall sculptures, and I suppose in a way like memorial sculptures. I work with chalk and the names of the settlers' families, and there is this kind of, the cans become the surrogate kind of remnants from the people there.
With those, I also know that as well as the objects that you find, and then you install them in a very, very elegant way with a considerable amount of respect. It's really quite lovely. And so when someone thinks about tin cans, rusted tin cans and old bottles and things like that, one has an idea of this sort of clearly it's throwaway object stuff, but you take it and you give it a sense of presence and a sense of respect and a place of honor, because it's reflecting the challenges that these people had. But you then take a lot of this a step forward, and you also then do paintings of some or all of these objects, which then become complementary installations. Is that right?
Yeah, coming from a painting discipline, I am interested in the practice of painting, but I suppose, you know, like a lot of contemporary art, you know, the single painted image has increasingly become less important for me. So the extension of that installation of the found object was extended into an installation of 80 small paintings, and in a way they are they build on the great European legacy of still life painting, but they become something outside that, I suppose, that links this painting practice to material culture. I am interested in the power of the secular object and its ability to convey deep and important meanings. I always kind of reference, I suppose, when my mother died in 1997, walking into her bedroom the morning after she died, the slippers beside her bed were imbued with an aura that they weren't before. So objects have the power to elicit these strong kind of feelings. And I suppose that is consistent in some ways with the great kind of canons of still life painting, you know, where the objects resonate with great power.